to infinity and beyond.
Everyone, Roger and James here from the DisKingdom podcast. In this episode, we're going to be talking about the fifth and final episode of the Telltale Game, Guardians of the Galaxy, sharing our thoughts on it. So first off, James, what did you think of this final episode?
Meh. A little underwhelmed. Not just of the episode in general, but like the entire wrapping it up, just top to bottom, especially once we got past, I think it was episode 2 or 3, it just kind of felt like it was on autopilot. In this episode, you're really the same. There weren't any major surprises. I think they thought there was a surprise, but it wasn't really. And as a Telltale game, I don't know, I was disappointed.
Yeah, see, this is my very first Telltale game. And I'm going to be honest, this has done enough for me. I'm not touching any of the other ones. I'll be completely, perfectly honest with you. Bar being a Marvel franchise or a Disney franchise, I ain't going anywhere near any of these. I'm going to be honest, this is not my type of game. I found it to be very slow. I like the story mode because it almost felt like... the only way I put it in my written review last week was a bit like... if you took all the cutscenes of a really good video game and put them all together, this would be like what a Telltale game is. The trouble is, for me, it's missing the game in between. A bit of run over here and do this challenge, and then we give you a cutscene. Well, you just went straight to the cutscene, and I feel like, well, I haven't played anything. It just, press left, press right. The walking around was so painfully slow. It's like you've got a superhero here, and I feel like I've got metal boots on trying to walk around. There was one scene where we had to get memories, and we're in a big rocks, and it was like, why? This is awful. This is just so boring, and it made no sense. It was like you couldn't even be bothered to make a proper mind. It's like it wasn't great minds, and you were inside of a brain, and there's flashes going off of memories. We've just got rocks that we have to move. It just felt like, well, okay, we're going to do this as cheaply, as quickly as we possibly can. It just felt odd.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say that's normal for Telltale, because it definitely felt like this was kind of the B or the C team working on this. Like, with the Batman title, I haven't played the season 2, but season 1 was a lot more engaging than this. There were a lot more things to do in this. There were a lot less walking around looking at circles on the screen. And I don't know. I mean, this goes kind of hand in hand with that news article that came out earlier the week, they let go a lot of the staff. And if you really look at it, their output has increased a lot in the last couple of years, but the quality has gone down.
Well, that was very much the thing in that report of saying we need, we want to deliver fewer titles, more quality, because I think they know they're damaging their brand by getting weaker, and I think that's the issue.
And they're also getting strong competition finally in this field. Deck 9, and I can't remember the other company that do it. They did the Life is Strange series, the prequel and the current and the original one, are actually better examples of Telltale Games than Telltale Games are. So they need to step up their game. Guardians of the Galaxy went in very hopeful because it was a high visibility property. And by the end of it, I'm just like, wow, you guys really need to reassess what you're doing. And then, of course, the news comes out. I'm like, okay, yeah.
I mean, it's very much for me very average. The ending was like, the final battle just felt like I was fighting a mid-tier mini boss. It was like, was that the boss battle? It was like there was no challenge. There was no. Boss battles are always a bit odd because sometimes they're a little bit too difficult, sometimes they're a bit... But this was like, I just felt like I just taken on one of the henchmen. It was so... meh. I don't know what it was. It just... and the whole sort of getting back together, it all got so corny, but it wasn't... and I don't know, he obviously does this big speech. It's like going off and getting everyone. It's like, we know... It just felt so... like this whole series could have been done in 3 episodes. They could have really have trimmed the fat down, really got it into a good... Because we ended up, that whole thing of going off and finding Drax and Rocket, it was a bit like, I don't know if you had to go find Gamora instead, but it was a little bit like, why? We know what's going to happen.
Right, and I think going through the entire series, doing these flashbacks for these characters really slowed things down. And it turns out, I mean, yes, they had an impact on things that were happening now. There were obviously little bits and pieces, but overall, you could have done it without doing that. And with the exception of Rocket, I don't think these little trips to the past really added to any of these characters in any meaningful way.
No, I mean, I don't know. It just felt a little bit. It was I mean, the biggest thing was we were having this big battle. The ship's about to crash in, and suddenly we flash back to a scene with Star-Lord's mum, and it was a bit like, it took forever to load, and then we got put into this, and it was like, you've literally just at the minute of one of the highest impact scenes of the game, you've literally just slammed the brakes on, flown us off the side, and it's like, why? It didn't make any sense at all. It could have been done on another episode. It didn't need to be done right at probably one of the biggest finales, the most action-packed scenes, and you just, I mean, I was sat there going, just loading, okay. I don't know, I was very disappointed. I was just a bit like, okay, well, I'm glad I got that one out of the way tonight.
Yeah, and that reminded me a lot of the movie Wind River, which came out not that long ago. It's got Elizabeth Olsen and Jeremy Renner in it, and it reminded me because you're getting to this very tense moment in this movie. They're about to confront some people who they think are the killer, and you don't know if they are. You don't know what's going to happen, and then it goes straight into a flashback. It's showing exactly who the killers are, how they did it, and why they did it, and then jump back to the present. You're like, oh, well, all the tension in this scene is gone because I know they did it, and I know they're about to find out they did it. Congratulations, you wasted my last hour. So
yeah, it was an odd one. I mean, I felt also the music in this episode was very I don't know, it was like, okay, I'm now going to get into battle. Let me put my headphones on. Okay, and it wasn't very loud. It didn't seem to take any effect into the actual fight. It didn't seem to fit. I mean, I was expecting, a completely different song. It was just like, I don't know. It just felt a very. I think I just left it just a bit like, meh.
Yeah,
I was not. I gradually just hosted. I think I went in. I did go. I went in blind, and it was like episode 1, okay, episode 2, and then gradually it was just like, and episode 5 just left me just going, thank God it's over.
Yeah, it's done. I think that they missed a very big opportunity with this license. The Guardians of the Galaxy was a very big coup for them. I know they've got Batman, they've got Walking Dead, which are also huge licenses, but this could have been the start of a lot of Marvel franchises. It still might be.
Yeah.
I mean, Marvel might look at this and go, oh yeah, the sales were good enough. Let's greenlight a Thor Armageddon. I know it's Ragnarok, but but from our perspective, if we weren't doing this podcast, if they released an additional Marvel one, we might do it to talk about it. But if I was doing it as a consumer with no need to keep up on the current, I'd just be like, I'll get it when it's $10.
Yeah,
maybe.
It was that kind of really weird thing for me. Of it's not my kind of gameplay. It's not. It just. And the action scenes kind of just took me back to the days of playing Dragon's Lair in the arcade, of which I hated, and that whole scene in Stranger Things. That's pretty much how it is. But for me, this just the storyline just ended so bland, so choreographed. It was so corny. I didn't feel like it really. It didn't hit home. I kind of went after I did my review. It's like, well, let's just make sure because sometimes you're like, am I in line with everybody else at this point? Am I being really grumpy? Am I being really harsh, or am I being too easy on it? And it's like, no, okay, everyone pretty much nearly all the reviews have all kind of come, and I'm like, okay, good. Because sometimes it's like, am I completely just being grumpy on this?
And sometimes, yes, we are. Sometimes we end up being harsher on something than we really need to be. But I don't know. I did not verify
No.
with other reviews. I don't know what other people said, but I was definitely just like,
Yeah.
yeah, I could have been perfectly content not playing this game,
I
which
mean,
is
that's-
unfortunate.
Yeah.
I love the Guardians license, although the farther we get along, the more I acknowledge that I actually preferred the Guardians license from the early 2000s, which is not the same as it is now. But this is the popular one. This is what the movie
I think it's one
created.
They should have done that whole battle with Thanos at the end. They should have flipped the villains, because Hela she just wasn't an interesting character for me. She just didn't seem to. There was no risk, because there was, I don't know. There was something about this. It just didn't quite hit the mark for me, and I think that's pretty much the end of it. It was just, disappointingly average. There was just no. I think that was just the only way I can say it, really.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, I don't feel good about the fact that a whole bunch of these guys lost their jobs at this company, but at the same time, from a business perspective, you're kind of looking at this going, yeah, you really did need to refocus. This is not your best effort. You guys are releasing like Minecraft Season 2, stuff like this. It's like, yeah, go back to what really made your name in the first place, which was, a single title at a time, maybe two, but you had your best staff on it.
Yeah.
And those early ones, they haven't aged all that well, but at the time, they were really well put together. Yeah. And if they can get back to doing that, then that'll be good for them.
I've seen quite a lot as well of people talking about how the engine hasn't changed in years, and it's very last gen. It needs a massive. I think because I was going in fresh, I didn't personally find it to be. But there again, at the same time, there's been occasions where it's like, it didn't particularly feel very fresh.
Well, I mean, that was the other thing was Guardians at least changed up the art style. A little bit. Before this, they used kind of a Borderlands-esque comic style. Yeah. Where very heavy lines to delineate faces and, very thick artistic style, whereas this tried to go for a more, not realistic, but more smooth style. And you could just tell that the engine wasn't up to it. Yeah. And they absolutely need to go back to square one on this. If you look again at Life is Strange, it's actually got a pretty solid engine. They didn't have as in-depth a team, so it's not as quality, but you can see that it's built on a stronger foundation. And if Telltale wants to stay competitive in the genre that they basically championed for the last 10 years or so, they need to rebuild their foundation. Straight up.
I think that's what looks by the looks of it. They know they went a bit too. They spread themselves too thin, and this is the result. And unfortunately, this is what the problem is as well of bad quality. If they're trying to reach different audiences like myself, this was their opportunity to reach me with a franchise. Then they didn't do it. And that is essentially what the problem is with this kind of program. But we'd love to know what you guys think at home. Let us know in the comments below. Did you enjoy episode 5? What did you think of the whole series as a whole? Love to know your thoughts on it. Like for me, it just kind of started good and was all right, and then it kind of dropped off. But I'd love to know your thoughts on this. As per usual, you can subscribe or like or follow on whichever video or audio platform you are watching or listening on. So it's always great to hear what you guys think, so leave us feedback, either in reviews or comments or etc. on any of those platforms. As you can also check us out over at DisKingdom, and you can follow us on all the different social medias to keep up with our latest news. James, where can they find you?
I'm heroiclegacy.com.
And on that note, guys, thank you very much for watching. See you guys soon. Later.